Dr. Joe and Cindi Ferrini, it is so nice to have you guys. Welcome to Let's Parent on Purpose.
Thank you
Thank
so
you. Good
much
to
for
be here.
having us
Thank you.
today. Thank you.
So, you've written a book, The Special Needs Parent, A Guide to the Life You Never Expected. And you wrote this based out of, I think, starting from your own story. So, love to jump into your story and then we'll just talk more broadly after that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Well, so our son Joey is 45 very soon. So we have had him all these years. Um, he has cerebral palsy, he has epilepsy, a number of other cognitive delays, speech delays in terms of really not being able to understand him. When he was diagnosed, probably around 9 months to a year old, uh, mental retardation was part of his diagnosis. It's a term that we think is really accurate to Joey and many others like him, although it can be very negatively shared with people, in negative ways, but we think that it's a very accurate diagnosis. And we are seeing it again, even though
Uh-huh.
that was many years ago, we are seeing that diagnosis again, which I think is accurate. But I like to share with people that you say that in terms of a diagnosis, not name calling or something like that,
Right.
that it's not a good thing that way. But when we got that diagnosis, we were just shocked because there was nothing really in either of our backgrounds that we could say, oh my goodness, if we wouldn't have done this thing or that thing, or had this not happened, Joey wouldn't be the way that he is. And there wasn't anything that we could put a finger on. Do you want to share about the diagnosis?
Well, the way this thing worked is that when Joey was first born, his EPCAR score was like a 10 out of 10. So we thought, well, we got a genius on our hands here, or
Uh,
the next NFL running back here. But uh, within a few months, he wasn't hitting his benchmarks that he should have been hitting. And it was as a result of a dear friend of Cindy's that basically confided in her mother and said, I don't know if Joe and Cindy are seeing these things, but from looking from an outside observer here, it's pretty obvious that Joey is delayed in quite a bit. And it might be good to let them know that they maybe should be looking into trying to find some help for him. And so that began our journey. And what Cindy did is she went to the library and she picked out this old medical book or biology book, and she gave it to me. She said, "Okay, start doing your research here." And so at that point, I just began to line up the Joey's symptoms, and it came to a diagnosis. And we went into the doctor's office, and with our diagnosis in hand, and we said to the doctor, "This is what we think our Joey has. We think he has cerebral palsy, probably will have epilepsy and mental retardation. And what do you think?" And he says, "Yep, that's what he has." And he just got
wow.
up and left the room, and that was it. And so we were just left there by ourselves, looking at each other, crying, and realizing that our life has now changed forever. And that caused us to begin to put into effect the needs that were needed to get him the help that he needed, the therapies and so on. And Cindy was amazing in terms of beginning that process. And so we began that journey of going through physical therapy, occupational therapy, and
Speech therapy,
yeah, speech.
so many different therapies, as you probably
Uh-huh.
know. And, you know, it was an early intervention program that we began through a metro hospital near us here in the Cleveland, Ohio area. They were fabulous.
Yeah.
And then Joey later went, when I say later, but he was about 3 or 4, went to a very nearby to us private school for special needs, and they provided all of the physical therapies and such that we beyond that occupational speech that we would need for him, which was kind of funny because back in the day, many of our friends were complaining about how expensive preschool was. Well, none of this was covered by insurance, and at the
Mm,
time, we were probably paying 3 to 4 times what another preschool without all
right.
those helps would be. But please know, we were so glad that we could afford to do that because he got what he needed, and we were just so grateful.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking through that time period. He's just a few years younger than me. Um, there's been, I think, a lot of destigmatizing of special needs situations, which I think has been a very good thing over the last couple of decades. Um, he was growing up in the era of just blatant stares and ostracization, much more than what you find now. I think even now in a
Yeah.
lot of the public schools, their goal is inclusion as much as possible. But
Sure.
I'm imagining you all experienced a lot of isolation in your journey. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I think, whenever we have opportunity to share it, I think the two top things that parents experience with children with special needs, one is isolation and two is stress. Those are the two
Mhm.
top things that people share with us.
Yeah. So something that jumped out in your book, I think I'm remembering correctly. Is it like 13%? Is it 13% of children are diagnosed with some kind of special needs, or 13% of households? It was, I might be getting the number wrong, but I remember thinking like this is pretty significant.
Yes, I mean, the numbers really have jumped, and, like, I don't wanna be held specific to this, but if I'm remembering correctly, when we wrote our first book, it's called was called Unexpected Journey: When
Hmm.
Special Needs Change Your Course. At that time, it was 1 in 150 children that were diagnosed with some kind of a special need. Now it is something like, if I'm remembering, 1 in, like, I don't know, a very low number. Let's not give a
Yeah.
number so I'm not incorrect, but very low number. Joe has some statistics that he will share too, but in terms of how many children are getting services in school, it comes out to about 1 in 7, and that's by Baylor University's research. What statistics do you usually
Well, again,
share?
I think you hit on the idea that when we classify somebody as disabled, then that brings into a whole group of different groups of people. I mean, you could be disabled from birth, you can be disabled or acquired through an accident or aging, and when you encompass all of those things together, what it comes down to is that 1 in 3 households in the United States have some a member with a disability.
Wow,
W-
1 in 3.
1 in 3. And, disability is should be looked upon more as an ordinary aspect of our human experience in the United States. But the reality is also is that 47% of them have left their church because their
Mm,
church with disabilities was not, their child with disability was not welcomed or
mm,
included in that church.
Yeah, or they didn't
And,
have the facilities or the people or the abilities to take them in and take on that responsibility. We see a lot of changes, and Key Ministry is a ministry that is really working hard to make that a reality, and they're doing a great job in that. The problem is, as we see it, with statistics and thus the reason we want to be so careful with what we share in our numbers. If you just say special needs, that encompasses so much. It could be autism, it can be cognitive, it can be medically fragile, there's so many that go under that umbrella. But if you just say autism, then that becomes a whole different statistic
right.
from the whole umbrella. And so when you recognize what Joe just said, that there's so many in the United States, that there's so many households that are caring for someone, it's a very high percentage. And let's just say this too. We're talking about special needs, but then add on things like the caregiving of parents who maybe have Alzheimer's, dementia, and then you add that. And actually, our son, if you were to give all of the ways that he is in terms of how he talks, how we think he thinks, it's very much like a person who has dementia.
Wow.
And so, so many brain issues, whether it's trauma or birth related or in utero, whatever happens in utero, you take all those and you realize that the brain it gives you different diagnoses, but so many of them it's the root issue, but many things look the same.
actually,
Yeah.
the first book we actually used to help us to race Joey is called The 36-Hour Day. And it was
Really.
written by a doctor and a nurse and it was talking about how to take care of someone with Alzheimer's or with dementia.
Wow. Huh.
And at that time, we were caring for Joe's mom.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Cindy's dad had Alzheimer's. My mom
Okay.
had advanced vascular dementia, and those symptoms and patterns were the exact same thing that Joey was experiencing as a
So
special needs child. So that book is still, I think, a great asset to
it sure
have,
is.
that 36-hour day. But that also alerted us to the fact that there wasn't too much out there that we're
Mhm.
specifically addressing and talking about the special needs parent. And I think that was one of the motivations for us, was to recognize that there's a whole group of people out there that are doing work behind the scenes, and people that I think are heroes, because they're doing this every single day, 24/7, 365. And people are just blind to the fact that they're out there doing that
Mhm.
every single day. And we can tell you, friends of ours are, even though we call them friends, the reality is that they're pretty clueless about what we do every day
Oh.
for Joey. And I think the story I like to use is that a friend of Cindy's, which I thought was a very close friend of Cindy's, and this has probably happened about maybe 10 years ago or so. Cindy and her were talking on the phone, and she's interrupted the conversation. Cindy says, "Well, I have to go, and I have to go give Joey a shower." And there was like a pause on the phone call, and the person said, "You give Joey a shower?"
Mhm.
It's kind of like, well, yeah, every day we've been doing that now for over 40 years. And,
Wow.
uh, and so I think part of our problem for the special need community is that we need to increase awareness of the reality of what we are confronted with every single day. Because most people, they don't, number one, they don't want to get involved. They're
Mhm.
afraid to get involved. They're fearful what might happen if they did get involved. And so we just need to be more open and transparent with who we are, with our friends. And if we're in a circle with a bunch of special needs parents, we can
We all
be
get
as
it.
open and transparent as you want. I
Yeah.
mean, we get it. But you take us out of that and put us into, if you will, a normal, setting. Most people just, they talk about different things, and
Mhm.
it starts to sound pretty petty what they're talking about. But to them, it's an important, making sure
Mhm.
you get your nails done every Wednesday, or getting your toes done on Thursday. And, it's going to, okay, fine, good. And, but today my son had a seizure, and we had to take care of him. I had to do CPR on him, and you're worried about getting your nails done. And so it's tough to connect sometimes with
Yeah.
folks. But that's why we wrote, it's part of the reason we wrote the book.
Yeah. I do a lot of premarital counseling, especially for younger couples getting married. And, in that premarital counseling, we'll talk about marriage, and we'll have a section where we talk about children. Um, there's none of them that, as we're doing this, are entertaining the fact that, well, my
No,
children are going to be anything but healthy. It's
absolutely.
like, they're determining, do we wanna have 1? Do we wanna have 7? But, like, it's all under the assumption that they're all gonna be strong, all gonna be healthy, and we're gonna be able to kinda roll through life, and it's just a matter of managing that. And yet, what we know is that with a really wide gradient, a substantial portion of households are going to have some special needs situation.
Oh yeah.
I was sharing with you before, um, we started recording, we've walked through 2 different at the same time special needs situations that were very different, with a son with childhood cancer, and then another little one that had some pretty significant mental and emotional issues that were, obviously not her fault. Um, and, one of my observations was that the cancer, while terrifying, was in some ways easier because we could be very public about it.
Right.
Like, just, we got this news. It's the bomb has dropped, but everybody's wanting to know what's going on. Like, this is the treatment. This is what's happening. This is good. This is bad. This is our prayer request. Um, but the more internal, I think, oftentimes the more mental the issues are in a household, you don't feel, and I don't think you have that same kind of freedom to be public with the issues, and so you can feel very, very isolated. Um, there's not, I remember the first day that they told us exactly what kind of cancer that Elijah had. The doctor's like, and this is the roadmap. Like, we have a 3.5 year roadmap, and you're going to do this on day one and this on day 17,
Right.
et cetera. And if this goes wrong, then we're going to use this treatment. It was very, like, it's scary, but it's like, well, they know the pathway.
Right.
Um, and yet, when you're talking multiple diagnosis or a mental struggle, they're guessing. Like, I mean, they really are. That and sometimes, like, you'll have one diagnosis for a bit of time, but it's not really that. Like, it's they're guessing, and then that treatment doesn't work, and it makes it worse. And so, these things can be extremely, like you said, stressful, but also very isolating for families. So maybe let's start back with, if a family finds themselves in a special needs situation, and now sometimes I think it's probably like yours, where maybe unless, like, a child is born with a known diagnosis or comes out maybe missing a limb or something like that, where it's a, like, all of a sudden light bulb, a lot of times there's this gradual realization of what we're in.
Right.
But when that realization comes, whether it's in an instant or whether it's like it's been some time and now we're facing the fact we've got a chronic, possibly lifelong special needs situation, what are some of the first things that you think that, like, parents need to know or come to terms with?
Mm.
Oh, there's so many, and we do touch on them. We do. First of all, I feel like they should surround themselves with the best team that they can. Doctors, nurses, therapists, therapies, and then when you get that good team around you, then you also find a good team, whether it be family or friends. But I will say those are few and far between. We even had someone that was an elder at one of our churches who said, "I don't often ask people how they're doing because I don't know what I'll do if they tell me what they need." And
Wow.
that was a sad commentary to me. I couldn't believe I heard that. I thought to myself, even if I'm thinking that, I don't know that I would have said it out loud, you
Yeah.
know.
Wow.
But but when that person said that, I thought, well, you're probably the last person I'll ever share anything with. We
Yeah.
also had a situation where a family member said to Joe, when he was expressing his sadness and heartache about Joey, that this person said, "Go ahead."
She said, "Oh, I thought you were tougher than that, Joe."
Oh, wow.
And,
So how often do you
and
think he's gonna
that was the
talk?
first time ever I was really transparent with anybody. We thought, well, we could certainly do this with our family. And it was a family member that basically said that to me.
Mm.
And that, so what does that do to your relationship with that person?
And
You're not going to be very transparent with that person. I could tell you that.
exactly, and you'll still have relationship with that person, but you're not going to enter into anything,
Right.
you know, that's of any consequence because they don't want to hear about it. And here's the other thing too. One of the things that we've shared, if you have a child, we have several people in our life who have children who need 100% care. They're children, but they're like 23, 25 years old, or maybe like Joey, 45. Well, they might still be in diapers. Now, let's just put ourselves in the situation. Imagine changing that diaper. You're
Mhm.
not changing it on a cute little 2-year-old that you can just clean up really quickly and put the diaper back on. You're talking about an adult who has adult, situations. And,
Yep.
people don't want to hear about that. Even though my friend was shocked that I gave Joey a shower, she would be shocked to know other things that I have to do for Joey too.
Mhm.
And most of them are around toileting. And so, but I've never mentioned them because I don't think that person really would want to hear about it. And
Sure.
that is isolating. So that makes it difficult. So I would say people need to get a good team around them. Anytime someone said to us, if you ever have an emergency that you need us to come over and get Joey, take Joey, keep Joey because you have an emergency, you call us. So I have about 4 or 5 people and on one of Joey's charts that he always kind of travels with it. If he's at my sister's house, it's in his little suitcase,
Mhm.
of whatever he needs, his medical cards, all that kind of stuff. And I have on that, if you have an emergency and you can't reach us, any of these 4 or 5 people will come and help you.
Great.
Now, they're not geared into how to care for Joey in any way, but they would help
Mhm.
and do what they could until they could figure out. And we have 2 daughters that would know what to do. So until they could be reached, these people have offered to say, "I'll help."
Yeah.
And we tell
Mhm.
them, we say, "Your name is still on that list, just so you know." You know?
Yeah.
And that was really another motivator for us to write the book, was that, as you've mentioned a few times already, just the idea of isolation is a common pattern we see in parents of special needs. And, if we could play a role in helping to reduce, if you will, the social isolation that these parents will experience every day of their lives, and help to, if you will, create community for them and encourage them to do those things that Cindy's just talked about, whether it's in the medical team realm or just the social realm. I mean, it's important to be really proactive in
Mhm.
beginning to create these teams of people. And really, what you're doing, when it comes down to it, is you're just trying to create a team of individuals
Mhm.
around you that care. And that's such a valuable asset to have.
And,
Yeah.
we're
Well,
taught.
what makes what let's say that I'm not the special needs parent, that somebody that I care about has a special needs child. Um, how do I be a good teammate? What makes for a good friend in these situations?
I
Yeah,
love that
it's good.
question
Mhm.
so much. You know, we often say if no matter what it is, special needs, medical issues for other people, or even a person going through divorce, that's a crisis in their life,
Mhm.
Instead of saying to any of these people who are having these challenges, saying, let me know how I can help, offer something. So for instance, for me, with other parents that have special needs children, I often will say, I am out and about running errands. I know you're going through this. Can I pick something up for you? Can I grocery shop for you? What can I do while I'm out? I might not be able to go over and mow their lawn. Maybe Joe could, but to offer what you can do. What are you willing to do? Some people aren't going to be willing, and this is just an example. If your child is drooling and hard to maneuver because they're so big, like I couldn't handle a big child to move because
Mhm.
I'm not really capable of it. And maybe some people would be uncomfortable with that. So you maybe you don't want to be the person who goes over and helps in certain ways, but what can you do? Offer what you can
Mhm.
do.
Yeah. I mean, actually, if you listen to Cindy's questions, what she just said, there's two extremes, what she talked about. And one of the extremes that was something we would encourage you not to do. And
Mhm.
that is to avoid the passive statements or questions like, well, let me know if you need anything.
Mhm.
Personally, I'm not going to respond to that.
Right.
I mean, how much time do you have on your hands type
Yeah.
thing,
And,
right?
and if you're in the middle of an emergency, you're not thinking, what do I need?
Right.
Yeah. But if you are more proactive and with your questions and more specific, like what Cindy was talking about there, that, I'm going to the store. I can pick up anything you need. I'll be back at your place at 5 o'clock with whatever it is you need. And I can respond to that because, that's something I can engage with him on a level that really will address some real needs that we have. But
Mhm.
if you're too passive, I appreciate the nice question there, but you have to ask these people. And that's what we find most isolating is
Mhm.
people just don't ask. And
And not only do they not ask, they we could probably count how many people have ever said, "How are you doing?" They'll say,
Mhm.
"How's Joey? How are the girls? How's work? How you doing?" But like, how are you doing for 45 years raising this child? Because, everybody has 24 hours. But the 24 hours, as you just described, with a child for 3.5 years under cancer treatment, your 24 hours looks a whole lot different than somebody who doesn't have any children at home or who has typically developing children playing soccer and basketball and all those sorts of things. And it would be so easy as a special needs parent or a parent going through these kinds of um, crises to get resentful and say, wow, like it must be nice to blah, blah, blah. In fact,
Uh-huh.
this just brings to mind, I remember Joe and I were going to go on a trip. I don't think we had our youngest daughter at the time. It was just two children, Joey and Christina. Kathleen hadn't been born yet. And we were going on um, a trip. It was a business pleasure trip, and it was to a nice location. And we were so excited because we'd already been married probably 12 years and had never been on a vacation, just the two of us
Wow.
by ourselves. And we happened to mention it to somebody, and the woman said, "Well, that must be nice." And you know what came out of my mouth before I could even think? I think I said it nicely, but what I said was, it really is, because when your children are gone, grown and gone, and you have an empty nest, I will still be child caregiving.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I still am. It's 45 years. And believe me, since then, we've had trips together. We have a trip coming up. We are not neglected or deprived in any way, but what it takes to get to do that trip
Yeah.
is quite out of the
That took
ordinary.
40 years to get to this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
the caregiving and all the logistics that go on Joey's side, let alone what we have to do.
Yeah.
yeah. So as far as a church goes, and we have a lot of special needs situations in our church. Just speaking to churches, if there's somebody involved in a church in general, um, what's the best way to approach and come alongside? Because I mean, you can't be. I've been on both sides of this. I've been on one where, my child has needed a shadow. I've been on ones where we just have to stay home because it's not medically safe
Right.
for my child to come.
Right.
Um, but I've also been on the church side where I've kind of seen it all. There's families that we've been able to help that are incredibly appreciative. There's also families that, quite honestly, their expectations are unrealistic. And, I could give some very specifics, but in the case that parent is listening and they already think our church is the worst in the world, it's like it's just unrealistic. So can we talk for a minute on both sides? First off, as far as a church is concerned, how would you recommend engaging and interacting and as best they can accommodating um, a special needs family? And then we'll talk about like parental expectations from a church side.
Well, let me just start by saying we are very connected with Key Ministry. We have been since about 2011. We try to not only promote them, but also to participate every year in whatever they're doing. Key Ministry is a ministry that it wants to incorporate the special needs community into churches, and they will come and help you in your own church to start a program and get what do you need? What do you see as your needs in your church? And they will help prepare something for you and with you, not just for you, but with you. And Dr. Steve Gersovich, and I can give you all the information later, Dr. Steve Gersovich is the founder, and his premise is just amazing. He doesn't have special needs children, but he's a retired psychiatrist who has
A pediatric psychiatrist.
pediatric psychiatrist who helped so many children along the way and just saw the need for these families to get into church. And as a side note, 2020 was a really tough year for a lot of people. People weren't going to church, but you know who it was great for? The special needs community, because we could
Huh.
all watch church from our home,
Oh yeah.
and we could all participate, and we could be a part of a small group where many times we couldn't. So that kind of spearheaded a lot of different thinking, especially in the special needs community, to uh, initiate programs and, as you said, like have someone to shadow the child. Um, there's many other ones out there, but I can highly recommend this one, Key Ministry. So that would be one start that I would have.
Yeah, Key Ministry is the premier ministry to answer your question
Okay.
in the country. There is nothing out there better at this point in time. Again, Joey's 45 years old. We didn't have anything like this years ago. But I'll tell you one thing that, to help what kind of kick-started our church years ago is that we had one young man who was just observant enough to care enough to do something. And
Mm,
what he was willing to do was he was willing to take care of Joey during church service for us.
wow.
And as simple as that sounds, that was such a big relief for us. And we were so thankful for him to be willing to step up and help with Joey. And all it took was just an observation
On his part.
on his part and a caring, compassionate heart to get us to do that. But, since that time, that was kind of the stepping stone to get us to a point of beginning to think about the importance of a special needs ministry.
And let me just add, he was a single young man who took notice that we were not going to church. We were dividing and conquering. Joe would go to church, and then I would bring the car and we'd switch. I'd go to church, but we couldn't take Joey. He couldn't take the noise. He couldn't
Right.
take the commotion. And that could go on and on. Every child is different. That just happened to be Joey. But let me just say this one more thing about Key Ministry, and that is that Key Ministry houses many ministries. So even though we are not a ministry per se, we don't have a name of our ministry. We write books and we connect with people and love on families that have special needs. But there are so many ministries under the blanket of Key Ministry to help people. And and that's what Dr. Gersovich has done, and just says, you do this, come join us. You do this, come join us. And everybody does their own
Mhm.
ministry. And yet between us, the connection and camaraderie is beyond anything we've ever seen in ministry. We've been doing ministry for 50 years. And so many people like, this is what I do, and don't bother me. And if you want to join me, fine. But this ministry is just, we welcome you. You have something that will help others. We welcome you.
Yeah, as you know, the special needs community is multifactorial. I mean, there are many dimensions to special needs. And again, we wrote this book, The Special Needs Parent, not just for our son, because Joey's just one person. He's just one special needs individual. But we try to write this in a generic way so that people from any aspect of the spectrum of disabilities could be able to relate to us, what we're trying to say, and to come alongside them and help them. And in addition to that, I think probably one of the most valuable things to the book is that there's just so many resources provided that, if you have a specific resource that you're looking for, there are people out there that can mentor you in that area of your life at this time. Maybe next year, 5 years from now, your need might change. Well, there are people that are already doing those things. And so, I'm so thankful for the partnership that we have found with Key Ministries. And it really has lightened our load, so to speak, in terms of being able to help people say, if you're looking for this type of help, here's a clear way to go to help you.
That's great. So now, as far as a parent is concerned, any mom and dad is going to have thought about their child's needs and conditions and capabilities more than just a general church would. What do you recommend for a parent? What's the most effective way to advocate for your child
Mm.
while maybe also having realistic expectations of what is and is not possible within a church situation?
Well, I will take this and I will have the same answer for church, and I would have the same answer for how you would deal with schools and doctors and therapists, and that is to go in as one who wants to learn, as a parent who wants to learn. Let me give an example. When Joey was little, on his IEP, his individual educational plan, it was to tie his shoes. Well, his motor skills with his hands are not that great. He does really good with playing games, like video games, because he uses his thumbs. But to get fine-tuned occupational therapy kinds of things, he doesn't have that capability. So on this IEP, it was on this for a couple of years. Finally, I said, you know, like, do we have to keep this on there? I thought the teachers were going to do a cartwheel. Like, no, we don't have to. He could use Velcro or whatever. And I said, I just don't think like it needs to be there. And yet the other times they would say to me, what do you see Joey doing next? What would you like to do? And I would say, I don't know. I'm not a special needs educator. I was an educator, but not for special needs. And I said, I would like you to tell me what you see him to do next. Or for church, I would like you to tell me, how can I help? I'm glad that he's going to be in another room that I can be worshiping maybe by myself, but what can I do to help? And I think when we put ourselves in that learning capacity, we don't become adversarial, we become more of
Yeah.
an advocate. And
I
that's
like
what I
that.
think is really important. Like, also, I remember some students, along with Joey, the parents would demand that their children be in a regular history class because they like to watch a history program on TV. But that may hold the other classmates back if
Right.
they're not capable of keeping up to do that. So there were times when I said, please don't put Joey in such and such because that's going to hinder the other children from getting what they need. Let's figure out something else that would be applicable for Joey.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
so goes back to what you were talking about earlier, and that is to have some realistic expectations.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants to have the genius of the classroom, right? It's just not going to happen. And when it comes to special needs, and so realizing that the teacher has been trained to help this person, this child, your child, it really involves us being willing to say, I suspect you know what's best for my child, and I
Yeah.
want you to know that we're here to help you. I mean, we are the primary advocates for our child, but we need to do whatever you think we need to be doing to help him achieve what he can achieve.
Also, if I could add, of course, we're the parents, and I feel like we do know best what our child needs. We know best what we'd like for our child. But also, I think we have to have the attitude that we're not know it all. And
Yeah.
so, um, at this time, Joey is in a program at our church. It's a medium sized church, and it's a program that is funded by our county, and it is a faith-based program. I don't know of any there might be
Yeah.
other ones out there that I don't know about. I haven't talked to everybody, but I don't know anybody else that has a program like that. And what so just for instance, the other day, Joey had some issues and they called me up and we walked them through it. We said, "Why don't you try this? Try this. If it doesn't work, call us back and we'll come get him." Because we don't want other people to have to suffer, if you will, all the agony with other children or adults who also are going to benefit from this program. So if you need our son removed for that day, maybe he's having a bad day. We think they should just not have a bad day, but they do. And so to be the advocate that says, I'm here to help, but I'm also here to give you my expertise. When Joey goes for his blood tests once a year for different medicines he's on, we know the routine. We know who gets the head, who gets the limbs, and we tell the technician who's drawing the blood, we say, if you want help and you want this to go smoothly, we'd be happy to come in and help. And if you want to do it on your own, you're on your own. So far, everybody likes us to come in because
That's great.
they get it done right away.
Yeah.
So I think there's if anything with your question, I think the attitude of the parent is the most important to be the helper, and not the hinderer.
Yeah. And of course, it really helps to know that you are talking to somebody who understands the special needs community.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
Joey had a previous job. He worked for 15 years. He was at this place. So it was just the ideal job for Joey. Light
Lots of
assembly.
supervision.
And boy, it was great. He was thriving there, but they got new management. The original owners, they passed away. They were just wonderful Christian men. They were gone. New people came in. And, we would go in for Joey's reviews. They would say, well, Joey, he doesn't participate. He can't, put this together. He can't do this. He keeps yelling sometimes out. He can't walk. He runs away. And I said, you just described our life. What do you want us to do with this? You know,
Uh,
this is who he is. And the problem was we were talking with someone who was clueless
yeah.
about how to deal with a special needs situation.
Yeah.
So that's what you have to really be, cognizant of the people that you're dealing with.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you guys for writing it. This has been a helpful and encouraging conversation. Um, one of the things I just want to encourage families who might find themselves in this situation is, I think one of the most crushing things is that thought of it's always going to be like this. And so you start like, it's not just today, but I think it's the same tomorrow and a month from now and 10 years from now and 40 years from now. And just that reminder that, um, like, God never gives you the grace for tomorrow. Like, He gives you the grace for today. And then you have to trust when you wake up tomorrow that it's going to be, the grace for tomorrow. And even as we're talking here, like, I think if I told you everything that my son went through for cancer treatment, you'd feel like this is crushing. How could anybody survive it? But it's like,
Right.
but it didn't all happen in the same day. It happened over a decade. And in the same way, um, days are going to be really, really hard. But what we can't do is take all of the worries of tomorrow and bring them into today as well. Because at that point, you're just crushed. Like, God gives you the grace for today, but He doesn't give you the grace for tomorrow until He's there. And I just always hold out the hope of, well, you know what? Jesus could come back tomorrow. Like, this may not be a decade situation,
That's right.
because, like, man, I'm just trying to share Jesus with people so that the last person can get saved and he can come back and I don't have to deal with this anymore.
Right.
But yeah, you guys have been very encouraging. Um, the special needs parent is there a best place to pick up this book? I know it's on Amazon. Is there anywhere else that you would encourage somebody to grab a copy?
Well, Moody Publishers is, who put it out. So always through Moody Publishers, but also if you go to cindyferrini.com, we have them there too.
Okay. And is that the best place if they want to find out more about you guys as well?
Yes.
Or any other resources you have?
Yes, absolutely. Our website.
All
And
right.
you could go to Joe Ferrini too. Either name gets you to the website.
Okay. We'll put those in the show notes so somebody
Thank
can
you.
just go down on things. Thank you
Thank
guys so much. I've
All
really
right.
enjoyed getting to meet you and getting to know. And
Likewise.
Likewise.
the
Thank
Lord
you.
bless you in your continued
Likewise.
parenting of Joey.
Thank
And,
you.
Thank you.
Jesus come back quickly because we're
Amen.
ready to be done with
Yes.
all of this stuff.
Yes,
Amen.
and the same for your journey too.
Yeah.
Each of us has a different one. So
That's right.
may the Lord bless it. And you know what? Our goal has been to glorify the Lord. May we do that as we go through this journey.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.